Gentlemen, welcome. Did first order of business, did everyone sign in? If you didn't sign in, please make sure you do so. We would hate for you not to have credit for being here. Second, quick order of business, if you're an adjunct faculty member, don't forget to fill out your flex sheet so that you get paid for this time. Because unless you fill out that flex form, just signing in won't get you paid. Okay? So those are two quick orders of business. I see a lot of familiar faces. I see some faces I don't know yet. My name is Donna Green. I'm full-time faculty in early childhood education. And Leslie Young is also supposed to be presenting with me today. She has been detained. She's going to do her best to get here, so she's running a little late. You're stuck with me for the moment. I've been teaching Fast Track since I came here. So we teach, and Tony Uribe is in the front, is one of our adjunct faculty members. In early childhood, we teach what we call a Fast Track, which is 4 weeks, we do a 3-semester class. So we've got a lot of good experience in cramming it all in and making sure we keep our standards high. So I want to spend some time today figuring out what you want. So if you have a smartphone, please text to 37607 and then text this number 739511 and put your message in there for me. What do you want to get out of today's session? If you don't have a smartphone and you're not comfortable texting, there are sticky notes and markers on the table. Grab a sticky note, write out what you hope to get out of today's session and just stick it on the wall next to this one. Okay, so go ahead and take a few minutes. Tell me what you hope to get out of this. I know some of you are here only because you have to be. And I get that. I get that. So, but if you got to be here, let's see what you can get out of it. Tell me how I can help you today. Just come on up and stick them on the wall. If you got sticky notes that you're using, bring them up and stick them on the wall. That's okay. Just here? Yep. Just stick it right there.
Second one.
And if you don't feel like getting up, if you hold your sticky note up, I'll come get it for you. How's that? There we go. I'll come get it. Just texting, I see lots of good texts up there.
Already goal-oriented.
Any more? I see some more sticky notes there. All right, anything else I want to get back up here?
Just assume everything worked out.
Anything else you want to get up here? All right, so this, by the way, is a strategy. One of the things that I like to do really quickly when students come in is have something ready for them to do. So they're not waiting around for me to get organized. So I will have a poll everywhere set up for that day's session. 99% of our students have smartphones, and they have unlimited texting. So having a poll everywhere sitting up, they immediately walk in and they'll text this. If they don't, though, I always have the sticky note. I have the low text solution as well. So that way, if there's a student who says, I don't text, I'm afraid of phones, I don't like them, it's okay. Put it on a sticky note, get it up on the wall. So that there's always that alternative. Because you're going to have some students who are going to say, no phones for me, right? Or I have a phone, but it's on my mother's plan, and I'm not allowed to text. I've had that one too. So it's a strategy that I use. Get them going right away, set the tone. We have work to do, and we have a lot of it to do. And I don't have time for you to mill around, right? So we get the ball rolling right away. How do we condense? Online strategies for weekend sessions, get best long course engagement, expectations schedule, how much break for a 5-hour class, make sure there are no enrollment or administrative issues. Yeah, that's going to be a problem, right? How do I hold their attention for 4 hours? It's hard. How do I get my students to do the reading, right? How do they do reading in 1 week that's really for almost a month and a half? Right, so how do we do that? There's a lot of really good questions, and we're going to get to them today.
You said, I was just hoping you'd give me an example. When your students came in, you said usually they text you or they write something on here.
Just the way I have this set up for you guys today.
Okay.
This is how I have it set up for my students when they walk into the classroom. There's a poll up on the board.
So you're asking them a question.
After the first class session, they know. Oh, when we come in, there's a poll up on the board. If I don't use a smartphone, there's sticky notes on the table with a marker, and they're going to answer that question.
So if you've got a question on when they come in to like critically think and get
It's a
involved.
question. It could be related to the reading I had them do the night before. It could be related to an activity we're going to do in class that day. It really depends upon what I've got set for that day's agenda. Sometimes it's, did you do the reading last night? Did you do the reading, yes or no? Because we're going to be working in class on that, and if you didn't do the reading, you're at a disadvantage. So I want to know. And by doing it this way in an anonymous poll, they're not uncomfortable saying to me, no, I didn't read.
Yeah.
When it's an anonymous poll, they'll be honest.
I've been doing that. But what do you do about it when they say I don't read?
When they say I don't read, I have a plan B. I absolutely have a plan B, and I realize that I'm going, if I've got a preponderance of students that say, didn't get to the reading, there was, a big concert, Coachella was this weekend and nobody read. So I have a plan B. And then usually there's something I call jigsaw reading, and I'll talk about that. So I go over it in a different way, so that we cover the material more in depth, because I plan on that. But it's a good question, because you got to be ready for the, no, I didn't read.
Well,
If it's one or two, then I say, well, you're going to have to pick up as we go. But if it's a lot of them, I have a plan B.
there is a new technology, new attitude by the new students, and somehow they don't feel that they need to read. Sometimes they feel like there is a better way of learning. And you give them a topic and they would rather go and do a search for it. And instead of reading the textbook. So
I've been using, for the last 2 semesters, I've switched to an e-text. And the reason I use the e-text is because there is a built-in quiz. at the end of each chapter. And they have to complete the quiz the day before class. So I know before they show up now, if they've read or not. So, and there are students who say to me, I can't read in e-text, but we have textbooks available for them to check out if they needed physical text, but they still have to go online and do the quiz at night, the night before. Okay, what I'd like to do is bring your attention to the easel paper on the wall. And over here I've got benefits for students and drawbacks for students. Over here is strategies. We're going to be filling that in a little bit later. And next to it is parking lot. Parking lot is for things that we want to get back to later. So maybe we're talking about something and you're like, I really want to talk about office hours right now, and we're talking about something else. You can stick it in the parking lot and we'll make sure to get back to it later. Okay? So if a question pops in your head, you don't want to forget it. I forget things all the time. You can throw it in the parking lot. Right now, what I'd like to do for the next 10-15 minutes is have you brainstorm with somebody near you. You're in small groups now, basically. Turn to people near you and then brainstorm what are some of the benefits for students of doing a fast track class and what are some of the drawbacks. And get those on these sticky notes and go ahead and get them up. I'll give you about 10-15 minutes to brainstorm that stuff. Okay?
Hi, Jill.
Fast track.
That's a good idea. Thank you. No, I was one every week. How are you?
Well, I have maybe every day.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get out. So it just means that I have one week.
I think I'm going to go just two exams. Mid, 2 weeks, 1.5 weeks, and then the final. Because I don't think my exams are going to work. But they're going to now have 15 years. No, one of the finals, and that means that I'm going to count it. Because I don't do intermittent, I don't do intermittent Sundays. I'm not paid for that. I don't count it. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and I know. So, what do you think about it? But I don't think What's your full
Getting that in there. And really, realistically, short time frame, well, students can get. I mean, let's be honest. How many hours do we spend they still need to sleep and eat outside of class? So we're going to fix our expectations. Then they know, oh, I'm there.
First test is later, it's Congress is 2 weeks later. And they have, oh, I got a chance. I can go over the weekend. And now I can't do that. It's got to be overnight. At least when you turn it, those consumers just want to buy. Yes, you
All right, everybody, Kurt is here to talk to us about admissions and records. I sent you this via email, but we're giving you a printed copy as well. So I'd like to hand things over to Kurt. He's going to give you some reminders.
Hello everyone, and for those who don't know, I'm Kurt Loco. I'm the Director of Admissions and Records, and I started here in August, so I actually by now figured out where the restrooms are in this building, so I can help you with that if you have a question. But I prepared this sheet with important dates, and I'm asking if you would include those dates as appropriate in your syllabi. For those of you who have been here this past term, you probably noticed I've been trying to ramp up email notices to students and to you, the faculty, as reminders of when to drop to get a W, when to drop to just be dropping before you get locked in, when registration comes. So I'm going to try to shoot out these reminders to students as we approach, and I'll copy you folks in on as we approach key dates so customers can make appropriate transactional decisions that they need to make at an appropriate time. Kind of get that off your radar, but if you would include those key dates in syllabi as appropriate, as you feel appropriate, that would be terrific. Alrighty, one important thing that I'm here to talk to you about is grading. Now, we all know we have to do grading, but the killer is this time, there is no transition between winter intersession and spring, right? And so right now, registration opens next week for both winter intersession and for the spring term. So what we've done is we've set up registration, we've turned it to count anything in progress as meeting the prerequisite requirement, so the customer can register for the appropriate course the next term. Now, in the unlikely event that some of them may not successfully complete the prerequisite, we will do what are called a prerequisite sweep. And we will do that over the winter break while you folks are home enjoying the holiday. We will come in and run the sweep, but we need your grades to make that sweep possible, right? So grades are due within 5 days at the end of your course, the last day of the course, or the following Monday after the term is over, whichever comes first. And so we really need those grades in as soon as possible. And it'll be most important for you folks in the winter intersession because the grades are only really due on that Monday, the first day of the spring term. So those people will be sitting in the room without any prerequisite sweep. It won't happen before spring gets underway. Now, Title V allows us 5 business days to pull people out of classes that don't have the prerequisite. If we don't do it in 5 days, it's done. They're off to the races, and it's a forgotten deal for us. There's nothing we can do. But our plan is to get those grades on Monday, and I will begin on the naughty list that Monday, the first day of the spring term, and the naughty list are the occasional faculty member who's yet to get all their grades in, right? And so I'll ramp out those naughty lists and I'll try to hunt down those grades, and then I'll spend the next 2 days running the prerequisite sweeps. Unfortunately, with our process here and the way that our records are, it does require human intervention to look at every student that we try to pull out that is unsuccessful on a prerequisite. We don't want to pull somebody out inappropriately, which takes us time. So we're going to need those grades in as soon as possible to make this happen. But we will reach into the spring and notify the students who were unsuccessful on the prerequisites after we complete the sweep that they need to stop attending immediately, that they were unsuccessful on the prerequisite, and we will drop them ourselves, and we will communicate that to them in an email if they've been unsuccessful. So please, grade early, grade often. That's what registrars say, right? Did you have questions?
Well, so the winter session ends on the 23rd of January. So does that, the grades are then they needed in by the 30th?
I really need them in by Monday, the 25th. To really make this happen, if they, thank you, the 26th. If they come in on the 30th, it'll be too late. I mean, I won't be able to.
So we have 2 days.
Really, in essence, that's really all you have. Now, what's crucial is if you're teaching a class that is a prerequisite for another course. I mean, that's if you're teaching one of those courses, that's what we really need. If you're not teaching a class that's not a prerequisite for other courses, then that's not going to be a big issue for us. But it is those classes, which a lot of these classes are, that we're talking now, English, math, science, we've got to have those in to make the prerequisites work, and we just don't have any time like we normally would have time to run these processes. But this winter intersession, which thank you for teaching for us, not only is your schedule going to be crazy, but grading's going to be crazy. But just remember, it's crazy on our end too. So we're all in the crazy land, but we've got to try to pull this off as best we can for the faculty that will then have those students who didn't successfully complete those prerequisites.
So class starts on the 5th. On the 6th, if we had students that haven't shown up, we could drop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we're not issuing ad codes for winter intersession because there's only 1 day. And 1 day, really, ad drop is the 6th. That's it. Once we get to the 7th, everything's locked in and you're go. So there's no time to mess with ad codes and waste your time messing with ad codes and students. They're just not, the senior management decided that ad codes would not be issued for the winter intersessions. That 1 day of ad drop, that's it, and away you go.
So we don't have
So first day no-shows can't be dropped into the following day?
You can drop them after the first day. Please do, because we will be operating the wait list at full power. In fact, we're working on modifications right now that should be completed within the next couple of weeks. We're waiting list, we're going to, rather than running them twice daily, we're going to run every 5 minutes, so that we can get this process moving faster and get these seats filled as quickly as possible once somebody spins out of it. So the sooner you drop, the better. The wait list goes out, emails go right out to that student, and we are also, the modifications that we're making to the email, or excuse me, to the waitlisting process will reduce human intervention that has to happen now. So when we run the wait list now, we get a listing, it comes through, and any student who is in a class that conflicts with the class that they're trying to come off the wait list on, or they don't have the prerequisite for, so, or there's a day and time conflict, those stop the wait list, unfortunately. It locks it in place, and it takes a human being, an A&R, to go in, pull those people off the wait list, and then we have been waiting until the next cycle runs, which we run it twice a day, 7 p.m. and again at 3 p.m., for the next person to move off the wait list. Well, that's just too slow. We've got to go faster than that, especially for these kind of this winter intercession. So, what the modification in the software will do is, if we are successful, it will remove the student automatically from the wait list if it has the conflict, and it will send out an email message explaining to the student why they were dropped from the wait list. It'll then grab the next person and put them in that seat and notify them they're in that seat. So it takes the human beings out, and it means the wait list will really move quickly, rather than wait for us to get in there, clean it up, run it again, and move them through. So another advantage of this process is that we've been doing this for years, but we never tell a student why they were tossed off the wait list. And I expected in the fall, when I came here and found out, I was like, oh my God, people must just go crazy, because people will be on the wait list and then they fall off, or they must wonder what happens. Well, we didn't get a call from a soul. I didn't have to explain that to a living student. I don't know why that is. They must just expect, or just never pay back attention that they're on the wait list and something happened and they're not on the wait list anymore, and oh well. So that's going to end. We're actually going to tell them why they're off the wait list, and the next piece will be, we're going to actually be proactive. We're going to actually explain how the wait lists work, so that we will communicate to the student, if you're on a wait list and you have the same class, but you want this different section, that's another piece that has prevented people from moving through, because you can't register for 2 of the same course in the same term. The system won't allow that. Those people also will drop off the wait list, but we're going to actually explain it ahead of time, so that they will know, if you have these conditions, and the seat comes open for you, you're going to be passed by, pitched off the wait list. You can get right back on it, but you won't get that seat you wanted. So this actually should help open up more seats too, because right now we have students who, oh, I'd rather have this class on Monday and Wednesday rather than Tuesday and Thursday, so I'll get on that wait list. And so they take that precious seat on the wait list while they're already in that same course. So this should open up more seats for individuals. It'll mean people have to take a little chance if they want that other class at a different time, but that's a decision the customer can make. Yes?
Kurt, you're doing a great job. Can I ask you a specific question?
Sure.
What if we have a student who's coming out of fall class who's not going to be passing that class? Will the system, as it exists for the fall, once the grades are posted, kick in so that student can sign up for the intersection?
You mean if they don't?
They're going to be taking the class over because they failed the class. So will they be able to sign up for intersection? Is there enough time there for the system to see that they failed the course, that they're going to be retaking the class for the intersection?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, there is. If the grades are in, right? That's the key piece. If the fall class is graded, it will allow the person to retake the course. And the students are already, I'm getting those petitions now, or we are getting those petitions now, students who know they're coming down to the finish line and it ain't looking good, and they're going to want to do it next time, and this may be their 3rd chance. So we're seeing those petitions coming through. So the customer is kind of aware that there's a problem there. for themselves, and they're working it ahead of time.
Okay, maybe that's why I received a note from the student who was telling me, fill out this form allowing me to take this course for spring. Is that, because for the first time in many years I received this form that I've never seen before. But I don't
What
know.
form that is. Is it a regular old-fashioned registration form?
I've never seen it before, so I don't know what it is. It just says Project Desert and all of that, and it just says name, student, number, and so forth. It says, allow me to take your spring class. I said, well, go ahead and take it. I'm not supposed to allow you to take it. You can take it. But there's a form.
Wow, I'm not aware of this form. Could you shoot me a copy or?
Yes.
But yeah, the student will need to have a grade, because if not, and they go to register in winter and their grade is blank, it'll say, oh no, you already have that, you can't register for it again. So once it's evaluated and a grade is on there, then the system will allow the individual to register if it's their second attempt. Of course, if it's their third attempt, they have to go through the petition process. But yeah, I'd love to see that form. Yes.
We can't add students then?
Yes, if you feel it appropriate. Now, for those of you who I'm pretty lenient, you may have discovered with certain things, as you are, you accidentally drop somebody, or somebody you drop them, they weren't there for 3 days, and then they come back in the class, and you've decided that you can successfully help them navigate through the course. If you tell me that on an email, I'm putting them back in, regardless of dates or those kinds of things. So I'm pretty lenient on that. So if you get a class going and it's underway and you can add that person and be successful, you send me an email, I'll put them in. You don't need to route them through the petition process. Let's not waste their time on that, because that takes days before it all works its way through. Send me an email and we'll get them in, especially when they're Intersession. Let's not waste any folder all our time. Let's just lock and load and head down the road.
Yes. Would you explain to me what the start of term Indio campus additions and records hours refers to? I don't know that.
So starting in this past fall, and once again for the winter intersession and start of the spring term, an admissions and records specialist will be in Indio. And we found it very effective in the fall. We run it on the same day that we have our specialist in ESL and testing going on in Indio. So we have two teammates that go to Indio on that day, and the office will be open that day. And we found it very effective as far as registration, problem solving, getting the ESLN folks on the appropriate classes or wait lists that they're on. And so that's what we're going to do again. And we'll keep doing that. I'd love to expand and be there all term, at least one day a week, but I just don't have the people power at this point to do that. So this is our effort to get somebody down there that can help problem solve in Indio. We're also expanding and have provided access to 2 other individual classified staff members who can do password account resets in Indio at the counter. That's been another problem for us, that we've had to take calls from Indio to try to do those over the phone. So we're opening the security so that individuals can do resets for them right up front.
And will they be on the second floor?
Yes. And admissions and records will also be on the second floor at that counter.
That's what I meant. And
Yeah.
I'm confused by the dates now, so they're only going to be there, they're not going to be there until January 8th.
Correct.
For the first day of class. The students have to just go online and help themselves.
We're physically not going to be there until we reach that first Thursday.
And that second floor is the task center, library, computer, everything room?
Well, it's more of the administrative suite. Is that the same thing? I'm not sure. So there's as you come up the stairs, there's a sign that says administration. And you take a right, and it's the first counter down the hall on the left, that big long counter, where the counselor is located.
Okay. Second question, what about a student who was faltering and had family issues, and he's a foreign student, and there has been in the class is basically an F, and if he's still on my roster, I'm giving an F. But really, I kept telling him, I don't know if he understood, to go to a counselor and see about getting out of the class. Is there anything I can do for him at this point? He's in my fall class.
Probably not, and there are several reasons I say that. If he's an international student, he must be registered at least full-time. And so if we were to yank those hours out and move it to a W, it may make him out of status. And then if he's out of status, then, you know, then all kinds of things break loose.
So financially, he's better off with an F.
Oftentimes that's true, and that's been my experience in other schools too, that international students, they'll keep that load, they'll hold that load no matter what, because if they fall below full time, then they're out of status, and then all kinds, like I said, all kinds of problems.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Anything else? All right, like I said, great early, great often, we're standing by and waiting. You know them now, we'll take them.
Yeah, right. Don't we love her?
Oh, yeah.
Admissions and records is just on it right now. It's great. The other thing I do in a fast track, these dates are in my syllabus. Last day to drop with a W, I have it in the syllabus, in my calendar, and I remind students over and over again. Because they learn very quickly, either this is too much, I can't handle it, or they let that time go by because they forget this is fast track. And if I don't remind them, hey, it's your last day to drop with a W, and if you're falling hopelessly behind, you might want to drop now. So I put it in there to remind them, but also to remind me to remind them. Because, you know, it goes fast for us too. Just like it goes fast for students, it goes fast for us too, and you look up and go, oh, shoot, that W date just passed, and I forgot to remind, I have 2 students who are flunking who probably should have gotten that W.
You check the syllabus every day?
I have my calendar posted in the classroom.
Because when I post my syllabus the first of the semester, I never look at it again.
Oh, no, it's the fast track. It's the difference in the fast track. You get a different mindset. You not only do I post it and check it every day, but I remind students every day to look at it, follow it, make sure we're on it, because it goes so fast for both of us. When I first started teaching fast track, I was used to a full semester, so we're in class and we get off track a little bit, and I think, oh, next week I can cover that. In fast track, that doesn't happen. If you think, oh, tomorrow I can cover that, no. It just doesn't happen. In a fast track, if you as an instructor fall behind, you've lost whatever it was you were going to cover that day. So I really am on that calendar, more so than I ever was before I taught fast track. I saw Anthony.
Not exactly to do with calendar, but I do a quiz on the syllabus now for the policies, and then I think now I'm going to do one mid-term or whatever this would be, like 1.5, but to remind them, 'cause it seems like it goes through their head and then it's gone again.
Yeah, the first day of class I do this activity called Station to Station. I learned about it in an on-course workshop. I don't print copies of the syllabi. I don't give students printed copies. They're all in Blackboard. I use Blackboard for everything. I have 6 stations around the classroom. Students are put into teams, and I had to put them in teams by just having them count off. So if I know I'm going to create 6 teams, I just start, at the first row, so that way I'm dividing up the buddies. Right? You have 2 or 3 students that you want to separate. So if I have them count off by 6s or 5s, that's team 1, team 2, 3, 4, 5, and they go through each station. There's a copy of the syllabus there, and they're instructed to bring paper and pencil, and there are questions about the syllabus that they have to read and find and answer as they go through these stations. And I give them 10 minutes at each station. Things like, where's the tutoring center? What are the hours? Because I put those in the syllabus. What are my office hours? How do you get in touch with the faculty, with your faculty member? What's the textbook for this class? Do you have it with you? And I say, if not, why not? Because I've emailed the syllabus to them ahead of time and said in the email, here's the text, here's what you need, get it, bring it to class. If it's an e-text, then that answer should be, I've already looked at it online, I don't have it with me because it's an e-text. But I get them digging in that syllabus right away. So I don't do a quiz on it, which is a similar thing, but I do this active learning, move around the room and read the syllabus together. And they quickly learn to work in teams. Because there's only one copy of the syllabus at each station. And I make them leave it there. So at first, they're like trying to pass it around to each other, and then finally somebody goes, well, wait, I'll read it aloud, and then we can all write the answer down. So they've got to learn to work as teams very quickly. And because lots of things I tell, in a fast track, I tell them, I only teach the class once. I don't teach it twice. If you miss a class, contact somebody in your success team. We call them success teams. Contact somebody in your success team to get the information. Do not email me and say, what did I miss? Because that gets me really angry. And I'm ready to teach the next class. I don't have time to go back and teach you a 4-hour session via email. You missed class, somebody in class will get the notes for you. Wendy.
So that team, those success teams, is that from day one when they're going around your syllabus?
That is day one, and they stay in that team through the whole class. I make them exchange emails, phone numbers, and because I use Blackboard, I put them in teams in Blackboard so that they have a little shell in Blackboard that they can use and share. So if I have them working together on an assignment, they can go into Blackboard together and use the wiki in there. But it's there for them to help each other. And I've seen students really develop bonds in those little success teams. They've taken classes together after they've left. They're like, this was really a good idea. I really like that. And they learn to become interdependent. Instead of calling or emailing me for everything, I just say, did you contact your success team? And then I'm done. I don't have to try to reteach everything. And I'll say everything's on Blackboard. Every handout, every PowerPoint, every video, everything I show in class is in Blackboard. So if a student misses something, they can go into Blackboard and get it. It's a great tool to use. All right, so put those dates from Kurt in your syllabus. I promise you won't regret it, even if you forget to check it. All right, so I want to get back to our drawbacks and benefits for students. And I see almost an equal number of benefits and drawbacks when I do a quick look, which tells me that we know this can be really beneficial for students. And when I looked at some of the drawbacks, they're very realistic. So it's a very, very fast pace. We can't expect students to dig too deeply into something in that amount of time. We couldn't. Right? In 3 weeks' time, I don't think I could dig deeply into anything. But what I want to do is provide students the resources so that they can go back later and go dig a little more deeply. So one of the things I use, it's my favorite thing lately, is these LibGuides. The librarians help design them. If you won't have time probably to make one with our librarian, but San Jose State has fantastic ones. So, and on every subject imaginable. This is a LibGuide that was created with Stella Baker and myself that I presented at a national conference for educators on how to flip the classroom. How many of you have heard of flipping the classroom? Just a few of you. So what that means is students are doing traditionally what we would think of as homework, like writing a paper, doing a project. They're doing that in class with me. And the homework becomes reviewing the textbook, watching a video, looking at whatever I would have lectured on. They're going to do that at home. And I've found for a fast track, it's incredibly effective. And I've curated some amazing content. This is the flipped classroom idea. This is a great video about how to flip. But here's like an example of something that I would do in a flipped assignment. So this is an hour-long video called The Secret Life of the Brain from PBS. So it's about infant cognition. I used to watch this in class with students and then we would discuss it. Now I make them watch it at home because it's embedded in the LibGuide. And if they say, I don't have a computer at home, I don't have internet access, I remind them that we have many, many, many computers on campus. They can go anywhere on campus and watch it. They watch it at home. I sometimes give them a little handout to fill out. And then when we get into class, we can move into creating projects about it. So I'm not having to waste an hour of that time watching the video that's already done. And this is one of the many things that I love to do. This is, I will send the link to this out in an email because although it's published, you can't get to it without the link. It's kind of hidden. But there are LibGuides all over our library webpage. Go to our library webpage and look at the LibGuides. They're all there for every subject. If you work with your librarian, they'll add in what you want. They're wonderful. That's one of my strategies, and then I've got a list here of several others I've done. And what I'd like you guys to do for the next half hour is look at these. Hopefully I have enough room here. Look at these. Think about yourselves. What are some other strategies you can come up with to overcome some of these drawbacks, some of these problems? And then get those strategies up there. So now we've got to overcome these drawbacks. We've got to figure out how do we fix this. So strategize with one another. I've given you some of my favorites in there. And go. Okay? So come back over and think about your drawbacks. Now, do we have extras anywhere? Oh, I've got some. Nope, I got more right here. Brainstorm away. Let's get ready to start wrapping things
Very, very kind.
on the board. So maybe you would like to share, because there's so much good discussion going on. I know you guys have a bazillion ideas that you were sharing. So who would like to share something that they talked about as strategies and ideas that they can do to help students overcome some of these drawbacks?
Off of one of the things that you wrote in here, I have one that I like to use, I call it speed dating.
All right.
So,
Speed dating.
So since we've got, all these hours one after the other, I pick the hour where they're most likely to start to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Which might be the second one or the third one, I don't know.
Depends on the time of day, right?
Yeah. And then have them write out test questions with answers and reference to the book individually, 5 or 10, depending on the time we have. And then I match them up, A, B, 1, 2, whatever. And then they ask each other the questions and they grade each other's papers. When it's set, when that group is finished, they raise their hands. And then they go to another one who's raised their hands and they keep trading. And they get more points for getting the more correct and the more couples they go through. It's a kind of speed dating. It gets lots of energy and they're laughing and talking. And
they're talking about the
And
concepts.
they're talking about the process and they're talking about what they're learning.
I like that.
And
Because
because
I'm
they
gonna have to remember that for myself. the
Because
speed
they have a
dating.
page and paragraph reference, if somebody in the, answers them, they, no, that's not what, because it's open book, they can bring their own books and their own notes from place to place. So at least there's that, but they can ask, wait a minute, that's not what I looked at, it's page so-and-so. Some of them get real intense and they spend 10 minutes going over stuff. Very cute.
Cool. What else do we got?
One problem we were talking about is, because we're both doing online, so how do you, because I was thinking about doing daily discussions, but I think that would be way too much, right? So I was thinking about, well, how can I have a level of interaction that I would expect in a 16-week class? How do I translate that to 3 weeks if I don't want to do daily discussions? And so maybe a weekly or 2 weekly discussions, but then also give the opportunity to have like a cyber cafe, like Chris had said, where they can post questions, just provide general feedback to help improve the course as it goes along, and just give them opportunities, especially since we're not meeting at all face-to-face.
So if you're going to cut down the amount of posting they're required to do, are you going to
make up for that content in other ways, maybe quizzes and things like that I normally don't do in a 16-week class. That's what
yeah, because you're still going to cover everything, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to remember. We've still got to cover everything.
Right.
So saying, okay, it's too much to post every day, but
Yeah.
you're still going to get to all that content.
You've got to cover everything, but some things have got to be on them in an intercession class, right? I mean, if you can't cover something, it's on them to read and come back. I mean,
Right,
correct?
which is, well, and it's on them even in a full semester.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's always going to be on them. They're the learners, right?
Yeah, in that same vein, we have the same amount of class hours,
We do.
so we could actually cover everything the same. And so I think the real struggle here is getting them to do their job outside of class. That's the hard part. That's the hard part now.
And it's a hard part of no matter what, right? It's just now we're doing it on steroids, that much better. Right? There's no time for those students who are kind of on the fence. You get those students that you look at maybe 3-4 weeks in and you think, I could help this student be more successful just by giving them strategies, helping them understand what homework they need to do. In that 3 weeks, that's day 3. You don't have time to do that evaluation for them. You don't even barely know their names yet, right? And day 3, you're trying to figure out whether or not students are going to make it through. So it's got to be on them. You've got to be telling them over and over again, do you understand how much time you have to put into this? How quickly this is going to go? 3 weeks is gone in a heartbeat.
Maybe that'd be.
You have the same hours, but to expect to cover the same content as you're saying is unrealistic. The reason is that the thinking process, as you know, is not the way we are thinking that, okay, we shorten the period of time and they can still learn everything. There are things that require a period of time for it to be digested before you can introduce the next and the next. So the idea for a short-term class is not to insist to cover everything. It is to kind of like clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in everything that we cover, there may be some extras that we have to put in, but we need to kind of like to make it more efficient. More efficient meaning that to some extent only, we can cover the content. And we have to prioritize and kind of like make sure that, in my opinion, if you make them understand a lesser content that with more depth, it is prepared to more content very superficial.
Yeah. The other thing I remind myself of when I'm doing fast track and full semester is I go back and I think back to my years as an undergraduate. I think, what do I remember from my, poli-sci class? What do I remember 5 years later, 10 years later? And then I think, okay, so what do I expect my students to remember from my child growth and development 5 years later, 10 years later? And that helps me prioritize at a fast track and say, what's the most important thing I'm going to cover in a semester? And I need to make sure I hit that. And there may be some stuff that can go by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah. Rebecca and I were also talking, both she and I teach already 3.5-hour classes once a week, right? So for us, the difference is not in how to keep the attention span for 3.5 hours. It's that instead of assigning an essay on Wednesday and having it due 7 days later, in concept it would be due the next day. And so 3 strategies that I've implemented into my idea for what's going to happen is, for example, my essay will be assigned on Monday and due Friday, and they're going to build the essay as they learn the content versus me teach all of the content and then I assign the essay. So that's one strategy. A second strategy is I'm replacing an essay with a group panel discussion. So instead of the individual doing all of the research, a group of 4 or 5 will break the research up and then they will present it to the class as a panel discussion and receive question and answer. And hopefully that way we get the breadth and the depth in the same action, and I'm taking out an essay for that. And then the third strategy that we talked about was creating an exam that is group based. So it's closed book, open memory still, but collectively they would use each other's brain power to answer the questions. They'd have the autonomy to answer themselves if they disagree, and they're still responsible for their own score. But the discussion of the exam is a secondary way to ensure that they're learning the material instead of just getting an answer wrong. Right? And so that's another strategy.
I love that group idea. In the real world, when you're assigned a project at work, nobody says to you, you can't open a book and look up for the answers to create this project. You can't use any research, that you have to just know it all on the top of your head. I've never had a job where somebody has said to me, you are not allowed to use library resources. Right? But we test our students that way. We don't allow them to go back and figure out, okay, where can I look this up? Because I think knowing where to find the correct answer is almost as important as just knowing off the top of my head the correct answer.
But your analogy is a little bit confusing in the sense that you cannot rely, and I don't allow students to open book for their test. Because when you do that, you're kind of training them to just kind of like go to something and find it. In the real world, there are situations where I ask you a question right now and you need to answer it. You need to have the knowledge to answer it, the information to answer it. So when you say that you can go to the library, that's for a longer term project. But at the same time, you have to develop the capacity to think.
We do. We need to have critical thinking skills, absolutely. But I think it's got to be balanced. Right? Sometimes allowing them to have,
Well, I do closed book, but it's open brain, and they can use each other's brains.
And helping each other through is a great way to do it. Other strategies.
Yeah, I think overall one of the keys to all of this, and you said earlier, I think it applies to all of the, no matter if you're teaching theater or if you're teaching math. Well, don't know, I should know about math because I'm terrible at math, but, and don't understand it at all. But, is trying to cut down on the amount of outside of the classroom work and actually try to integrate as much of the homework into the actual daily routine of the class. Because that's obviously one of the, that's honestly, not obviously, honestly one of the things that kids now in elementary school, middle school, and high school have problems with is they don't go home and do their homework. But if they're in class and there's actual class time to work and have someone who's not a parent standing over them trying to get them to do it, and it's actually an instructor, it's more beneficial. Not that homework's not beneficial, but a lot of homework's busy work, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So I think the more that we can integrate what we would normally have our classes do as outside of class assignments to be able to work on them during this 3.5 to 4 hours, like you were saying, kind of like flipping it. I think that's one of the most beneficial strategies we can use. Just my personal opinion, but.
I think that's a really good point in that I get a lot of students who don't know how to approach homework. I mean, you study differently for math than you do for history, than you do for art history. So there's different ways of studying, and to bring a little bit of how to do that into the classroom gives them at least that information, right? And then when they teach each other, so I think it's a really good point.
And it keeps them engaged. They're not just sitting there listening to you talk for 4 hours.
Right.
Who would want to do that?
Who would want to listen to any of us talk? I know my kid would not want, my own child would not want to listen to me talk for that amount of time. Especially your own children, right?
There might be two issues that are involved here. Content classes versus skills-based classes. Skills-based classes, they're not going to get the material unless they do it a lot and often. And content is repetitive. Content is a different kind of class. I've done some content class teaching, but most of it is developing skills, and they have to practice the skill and apply the principles involved in the skill. I mean, it's a lot like athletics. When you interview them in organized sports, you have to practice the skills. And then in content classes, a little bit different approach. So I think probably you might have two different approaches that will work two different ways.
Well, and I think each of us individually has a style. Shane and I were sharing this earlier. We have a style. We have a way that works for us in the classroom. And I think the key to shrinking our time is finding a way to make our style fit in such a short timeline, so that students can still be successful. We have to find what works for us. Each of us individually has a way that we teach that we're comfortable with. I have seen other people do some active learning stuff that I've looked at and thought, this will never work for me. I could not do that way. But yet, then I watch someone else do something and go, I could do that. So we got to find what works best for us. So really, my hope today was that you would come away with some ideas and strategies and ways to kind of crunch that whole semester into 3 weeks. Bless you all. I don't know how you're going to do it. I was like, no, I don't want to teach that. I do not want to do that. I had a couple more notes I wanted to go over very quickly. So I wanted to make sure I made these announcements. I had asked somebody from the library to come and I never got a reply. So just for your information, the library is going to be open during winter intersession, their regular schedule, which is 8 to 8 Monday through Thursday and 8 to 5 on Friday. The tutoring center on this campus, I don't know about the one in Indio, but the tutoring center here has limited hours. It's going to be open Mondays and Wednesdays from 12 to 4, and it's only the computer room that's open. They won't have any tutors available. And it's going to be open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 1. And again, there's no tutors available in the tutoring center, just the computer lab's open. So be forewarned. Sending them for tutoring isn't going to help.
So Rebecca and I were talking, one of the questions that we have, and perhaps we can get feedback on norming. For my once a week, 3.5 hour classes, I have kind of the attendance policy that if you miss one day, it knocks you to a B, you miss 2 a C, and you better not miss 3. Is there feedback as to what we're doing about attendance in this situation?
So, attendance, you have to have a policy in your syllabus on attendance. You're not supposed to grade for attendance. But what I do is I have in-class activities that happen at different times throughout a class, and those are 4 points. So they are part of the grade. Some people do quizzes, in-class quizzes that you can only take if you're there at that time. So it's kind of a way of grading your attendance.
But there's no penalty if they miss 4 days and
I
they're
have
only in 3 weeks?
if you miss 2 days in a row, I drop you. That's
I have a
it.
question about this for you or for whoever. If somebody misses your class 4 times, but does better than everybody else in class, should you drop him?
Hopefully my class is set up in such a way that that would not be possible.
But if it is possible, no, the question is,
So-
because we have a tremendous diversity of
Yeah, I don't
students.
drop students. So
So what
dropping,
I mean, drop
yeah.
is great. So
But I
why should
do.
Steve, who is doing better than somebody who attended every day, if he ends up, this is a hypothetical,
Right.
if he ends up doing better, why should he get a lower grade? Just because he didn't attend? Or he examined?
I mean, I suppose that in the catalog, every student has the right to challenge a final, for example, right? So if they don't need the material of the course, I don't know why they're taking the course and wasting their time. Hopefully my rigor is such that if they miss class, they're missing content and they won't be able to be successful in the class. That is my goal.
In my experience, in my classes, and I'm sure all of us have those, I have students like about, usually each semester in each class, I have like about 5 students who are by far better than other students, faster reader, faster learners. So what happens is, if they don't come to class, but they know chapter 5 is to be read, and they read it and understand it, what's wrong with that? I'm trying to kind of move us out of
What
the
I say-
high school and
What I do
school
say in my
There's
syllabus,
self-discipline
to cover that in my syllabus, I say, if you miss 2 classes in a row, I will drop you, and then in parentheses it says, unless you have discussed with me in advance and there are extenuating and unusual circumstances. So
Yeah, I
students
have a caveat. like
can
that
email
too,
or call
but-
me and say, you know, my dog died, you know, whatever's going on, but I'm keeping up, and I make allowances in those cases.
The first time I've had, I teach ceramics and art, but I'm also doing art appreciation online for the winter. But for ceramics, it's the first time I've had this happen ever, where the student was always ahead of, in class. Usually it's so much that they can barely get it done, and she was a project ahead the whole time. So I let her do an extra credit and then another credit, and then I was like, okay, you can leave early. So that was the first time that's ever happened to me, but she was really, really just fast and just really talented and just able to do it. And so, she'll check in, she'll come into class, and then if she's done in a half hour, then I let her leave. Well, that's only
Well,
once.
and it's to
Yeah.
your discretion. It's to your discretion. These are your classes,
But they
right?
still have to be there,
Yeah.
So did you say that we cannot grade, we cannot give points or grades for attendance?
You're not supposed to grade on attendance.
But you
I mean,
it can be a factor.
You can, class participation
I
can
have
be
it
a big
listed as
factor.
participation and attendance, and
Yeah,
I say.
so
give me-
we're not supposed to grade on
Okay, if my
attendance.
syllabus said participation in attendance, I'm gonna call it.
So it's a participation points,
Okay.
is what I always call it, to cover that
You
base.
just change the words.
But it's also been my understanding that they can miss as many classes as you miss. Is that true?
It's actually, it is whatever is in your syllabus.
So it-
Whatever is in your syllabus, and then you need to stick to it.
Now, not that I do this, but when is it legal for us to drop them for absences?
Whatever is in your syllabus.
But contractually, to get credit for the course, they have to be in the course for a certain amount of hours, no?
No?
They have to master the content.
Yes.
You have to take attendance. You have to show at census that the students you are claiming are there.
That's true, I think they have to have a certain number of hours.
Because otherwise, we could let them all go an hour after we start. I don't need to stay for the full 3.5 hours
You
either.
have to stay. As an instructor, you have to stay, but as a student, I don't believe there is a.
Check Title V.
Yeah.
Check Title V. Then how are we tracking hours for an online class?
One way that I do it, and in town.
They have to log in, but we don't know what they, you know. So, but it's, put something in your syllabus and stick to it. That's my advice.
So there is no method of
Check with admission and records. Check with admission and records. For online, they have to check in at a certain time. And at census, you have to be certifying that the students on your roster are students who are attending
I
class.
just thought that when that transcript goes to the university, for example, in our articulation agreement, that grade equals X amount of instructional hours. That's what I have always.
That grade, okay, this is a longer philosophical
Okay,
discussion, but it's, because it's less about hours than it is about mastery of content.
That's interesting.
It's the number of hours we offer the class equals the number of units. There's that. But the student has to have demonstrated that they've mastered the content. That's why they can challenge a class with an exam and not have to have taken it. So, you know the tutoring, you know the library. Make sure that you have everything in your syllabus, stick to it. And have a great winter intersession, you guys. I like to start and end on time. It's 3 o'clock.
Victor told me that